Hey everybody, welcome back to Miles and Mentors. Today we have with us Annique from Small World Ventures, a freight broker who helps shippers simplify logistics with reliable service, real-time visibility, and hands-on support across all different modes. We're totally stoked to dive in and really tap into that lived and learned knowledge that she's gained across her time in the industry. So stick with us. It's going to be another great episode right after this on Miles and Mentors.
Welcome to Miles and Mentors, the podcast that humanizes trucking, getting real-life advice and insights from logistics professionals from all over the industry. We sit down with those seasoned mentors who have put in the miles with a mission to pass on the knowledge gained from years in the industry to you. Now buckle up and enjoy the show.
Hey, what's going on, Annique? Thanks so much for being here.
Hi. Nice. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm really stoked to dive in and kind of learn about your path through the industry and what you've lived and learned along the way. But let's start there. For those that may not know who you are, if you could just tell us who you are and a little bit of your background about what's going on in the industry today for you.
Sure. Well, my name's Annique. You introduced me. Thank you for having me. I'm with Small World Ventures, LLC. I'm the owner. We are more of a boutique brokerage agency. So we handle everything cradle to grave. We do rely on a good amount of technology, but we understand that the most important thing for customers is to know that there's a face and know our voice and know how we operate. And you can only do that if you're incredibly hands-on, which we enjoy being. I have been in this industry for about 20 years. I started off on the shipper side, mostly handling customs and LTL shipments. Back when you would handwrite your bills of lading and then fax them in. And then just transitioned over to sales. I had, 3 small children. I needed to be able to work from home and, not send another mortgage payment over to daycare. And it just kind of avalanched from there.
Totally side topic, but you're not joking about the mortgage payment to daycare.
Right. Ridiculous. What are they doing?
Tapped into, right?
We got into the wrong industry.
100%. Well, so let's start all the way back. What is it that brought you to the logistics industry in the first place versus somewhere else?
Well, my degree is in biology, and so it has absolutely nothing to do with freight, but I knew once I got my degree that I didn't want to do anything with it.
Right.
I knew that it just wasn't for me, and I just, I don't want to say I wasted 4 years, but I did learn a lot. I learned a lot about discipline. I learned a lot about deadlines and how being a part of a collaboration is really important. So you have to hone that and really take into consideration the other people that you're working with. I learned quite a deal about time management. I learned all of that. So I decided to take the things that I actually learned that are valuable and transmutable throughout various industries and try to sell myself that way. So I really just applied to positions that I could, make a living with. And this transportation just kind of fell in my lap. And it was really supposed to just be a small role, but as things progressed, I started doing more and more with it. And then I realized I was really good at it. So I took it from there. That was on the shipper side. Then I transitioned over to being a broker, and I was horrible at it. I was terrible because if you go to any larger 3PL or one of the 3-letter companies, they're not really teaching you or training you on brokering. They're teaching you about equipment. Maybe they're teaching you a little bit about sales techniques, but they're not teaching you about how to rate things, how to quote things, how to communicate with drivers and what those expectations are. They definitely didn't teach about the growing animosity between brokers and drivers and what that atmosphere was like. So I remember the first time calling a driver and being very chipper, thinking that they're going to be happy to hear from me. And it was just like immediately take the pitch out of your voice and keep it clipped, keep it short and sweet because they're going to eat you alive. And finally, a couple of women saw me kind of floundering and losing money and doing things completely wrong, and they took pity on me, brought me under their wing. They were some of the highest producers of the company at the time, and they were dark horses there. Like looking at them, you wouldn't know, but those are the ones that you want to pay attention to because those are the ones that are working. Those are the ones that are getting it done. They don't have
Yeah.
time to do all the fluffy stuff. They're the ones that are actually making it happen. So I was really grateful to be trained by them, and just learn the real ropes of the industry. And once I did, then it was hit the ground running.
Yeah.
Eventually I broke out on my own, and now you'll find me doing the same thing, head down, working, all of that.
I love that. You touched on a handful of really great things there that I hope I remember to go back to, but let's go all the way back to the beginning real quick because you
Sure.
talk about going through and getting a college education in something
Hmm.
that is totally different than what you take on for your career. But immediately, at least to me, like that just rang out that entrepreneur spirit in you, right? Because
Sure.
you've got this classic training in a totally left field subject than what you're going at. But instead
Hmm.
of just saying, "Oh, I'm screwed, like I just wasted it," you're able to hone in on, okay, well, I do have this available to me. What can
Right.
we do with it? And be able to, give yourself a foundation that I think more of us have than we allow credit for. If you
Sure.
really look at the skill set you have, you can build a foundation and you can always go from there, but you've got something to work from. So I love how you didn't just, take that as, crap, now I'm down the entirely wrong path. It's like, well, we've got something to work with. Let's go from
Hmm.
here. Let's make the best out of this. So congrats to you because that's a huge way to look at it. It just, reigns true your entrepreneur spirit and how you're able to, excel from that.
Sure.
Moving forward, talking about being in the shipper lane and then going over to the broker, let's talk
Hmm.
a little bit about what was the thought process of why you wanted to make that switch.
Really, it came down to needed to find something that I was familiar with that gave me the flexibility that I needed to have for the family life, at the time. So wanted to be able to take care of my kids, work out of my house, still build relationships where it was sales, but it wasn't just a one-off,
Right.
people would be coming back and using me and relying on me in that way. And I appreciated that. And so it felt more of a career than it felt just several sales opportunities that you have to keep on grinding over.
Right.
So that felt a little bit better for me. There are so many different areas that you could go into in logistics and so many different paths that you can take that don't have that element of the relationship,
Right.
and that was the thing that really appealed to me. One, because that's just smart. It's just smart to have a continuous stream of load after load, sale after
Absolutely.
sale, opportunity after opportunity. But also, I'm working from home and I have these three little kids and I want to have adult relationships and, people that you can keep up with. So it was absolutely helpful in a personal aspect in that way. But again, I grew very quickly with it. And there were a lot of obstacles that were thrown in my way along the way. Um, but you never know exactly how resourceful you are until you have to be.
Yeah.
And I had no idea. I have this thing, and my kids repeat it back to me because they're in their teens now. But whenever somebody says to me, it's highly unlikely, my next thing to say or my response is, okay, so what's the lowly likely? Like you're saying highly unlikely, so what are the things that make it likely? Because that's the path
Mhm.
I'm going to take. So even now my daughter, whenever I say, I don't know, that's really chancy, she'll say, well, what's the 5%? That's how she translates it over to me. What are the things that we're going to need to do in order to make it happen? And I love
Yeah.
that. I love that that is something that has been instilled in them just because I don't know how to take no for an answer.
Well, yeah, you can look at it 100 different ways, right? But they've to some degree kind of scientifically proven it, right? Like the way you
Sure,
look at the world is going to be the path you end up on in one form or another.
sure.
Like if you can look at it glass half full or glass half empty, and it's kind of like you're saying there, the highly unlikely. Oh, okay, well, what do we have to work with here? And again, that goes back to like the college degree aspect. Like, well,
Hmm.
you got a college degree in this, it's highly unlikely you're going to be successful in freight brokerage, right?
Sure.
Okay, well, what do I gotta work with? So
Hmm.
I'm seeing that, that consistent, theme there, and I love that. That really
Yeah.
reigns true to me.
I was
Now
having a
yeah,
conversation with somebody that I'm friends with, who is a agent recruiter,
yeah,
and he's finding the correlation between people that were in the service industry and people who transition to being a freight broker. And he is like, well, why do you think that is? Bartender in college, all of that stuff. And I don't think it has anything to do with sales. I think it's just a matter of being adaptable. So
yeah,
I think that that part of what I was doing while I was in college was really helpful because you walk in to a bar as a bartender and you have to read every single one of those people that's sitting at your bar. Is that
yeah,
guy too drunk and do you have to cut him off? Is she in her feelings right now and you just want to leave her alone? Are they here for a good time? So do I have to put it on and, make that cheesing smile?
right,
Are they going to want me to do shots with them and I have to like sneak some water to do it, but, not make them offended? So being able to read people in that way and immediately kind of code switch to be what is needed, that is even more useful and transferable to this industry as a salesperson and as somebody that establishes those relationships and earns trust.
I love that. No, that makes a ton of sense there. One other aspect, you had mentioned is a few ladies in your career path that kinda took you under their wing, and for
Hmm.
me, that caught my attention because we're huge on the mentorship aspect here and,
Hmm.
not reinventing the wheel, but, finding somebody that can help you learn from what they've already gained in the industry. From that experience, how important do you think mentorship is on any level within a career path?
Well, they made it very clear at the time we are not friends. We are not friends. We are helping you. We have secondhand embarrassment. We are dying of it. We need you to do better.
Mm,
And I think that that was very fair because in the end, it does affect them because I'm giving brokers a certain name by constantly doing things the wrong way. And
sure,
so, and not only that, but we're working under the same company name. So if I'm making this company look bad, then it's making everybody else that's in it look bad.
right,
So really, they were protecting themselves in addition to making sure I get things done the right way and actually start making money because I was losing money.
yeah,
So um, there were some selfish reasons behind it initially and superficially, but I think that they also saw something in me where we were frustrated about the same things and we were aiming for the same things.
right,
So that was a common denominator there. And mentorship itself um, is incredibly important, especially now since there's such saturation in brokerage and also in driving,
yeah,
that any one thing is going to create this stereotype and an echo chamber across the board. So one broker, we see it. There's one brokerage, three letters that, everybody, you look on a load board and it says no XYZ. Um, that's, just a small handful of people that said it a few times and it stuck and it grew. But there are plenty of people that have great experiences with that company.
yeah,
But the bell cannot be unrung and you can't put the toothpaste back in the tube, at least not right away. So if you want to change the way that you're viewed, if you want to change the way your industry is viewed, then you have to do that through training. That's a perennial. That's not an annual. It's not going to happen real fast, but it's going to be effective over time. And it has to start with you and take it from there and just do what you can with what you have and where you are.
Yeah. You know, you bring up some interesting points there because obviously, when we think about mentorship, like I think the word just rains out like, oh, the best friend and all this jazz,
No,
right? But it comes in many, many different forms. And sometimes it's
sure.
mentorship we seek out and it is that friendship. Sometimes it's like indirect mentorship, watching YouTube or, some public figure that you just take a lot away from. But even in this case, like, I don't know, I can relate it back to a couple other interviews I've had where, they talk just in general mentorship within the industry, especially between drivers, right? And
Sure.
one thing that's put out is everybody's got an opinion.
Hmm.
Everybody's got advice. Show me your experience, show me your miles, right? So,
Hmm.
if you're seeing them as people that, hey, these are the people actually getting stuff done. They've got their head down, they're making waves and they're coming to you in any fashion. I mean, yeah, maybe it's not in the best light, but at the same time, if they're going to bring to you mentorship that's going to give you a step up in that foundation, hell
Hmm.
yeah, by all means, let's go.
Sure. You do have to use your own discernment though, because not everybody wants to see you win.
Yeah.
You have to remember that the people that are parked next to you on at that truck stop are not your coworkers, they're your competition. So the discernment comes in, does this person really want to see me succeed? Does this person give off the vibe that they are a little threatened by what it is that I'm doing? And do
Right.
they really, want me to win? And then maybe just take some aspects of other equipment or people who run different types of freight into consideration because their knowledge is valuable. And on the broker end of things, it's one thing to collab. We do that quite a bit. Um, but it's another thing when our customers are so out in the open when you are collabing. So definitely use your smarts and sign NDAs and protect yourself. Take the meat and leave the bones.
Right. Now, one thing you kind of mentioned earlier about that is, like the bar reference, being able to go in and kind of read the people. That kind of connects in my mind on these two. Do you think that ability has, I guess, worked in your favor to be able to weed and pick out the appropriate business advice or mentorship to take along your way?
Yes, and it's also helped me a lot in figuring out what kind of clients I want to work with as well. Because I'm not for everybody
Yeah.
and everybody's not for me. And it comes down to, every broker I think out there has fired a customer, once or twice in their
Mm.
career. But as far as using discernment or reading people when you are figuring out who you should be taking advice from or getting mentorship from, just take a look at their life. Like, take a look at the bigger picture. Would you take advice from somebody whose life you don't want to mimic or whose business you don't want to mimic? Are they complaining a lot about certain things and not actually living in the solution, but only living in the problem? There are people out there that are only happy when they can wake up and start complaining about their pillow. Do you want to be that? Do you want to take advice? Just because they have like little nuggets here and there, a broken clock is right twice a day. So span out a little bit and take a look at the bigger picture, be a little bit measured and observant because people can say a whole lot of things, but how are they living? How are they moving? How are other people talking about them? You have to
Right.
get that bigger picture.
Fantastic insight. Now, obviously, a big listener viewership of our show is kind of those newer owner operators, company drivers looking to get into that space, become business owners, fleet owners, etc. From the broker's perspective, if you could, inform a new trucking company, what is the main things you want them to know about the broking space or about the broker space about what you do?
Um, there's a lot of misconceptions from the carrier side about brokers, namely, brokers set the rates. Um, brokers are taking 65%, all of that stuff. And it's really, they're talking about the exception and not the rule. And they're also truthfully insulting the intelligence of the shippers, because we can rate things all day, but a shipper has to say yes or no.
Mm.
And I have one customer, just one customer, where if they lost their entire loading department, just the loaders, not even the people who get the rates and find the carriers, just the loaders. If they lost their entire loading department, they would lose 200 years of experience. And
Wow.
some of these loaders have been drivers. Some of them have been brokers. Some of them have been in that role of the transportation manager, and they're just kind of finding their way out, to retirement, and just want to
Yeah.
take it easy and not make any decisions. But when you say, I'm going to go to a shipper and I'm going to take their business and show them how much money this broker is making, they know. They know because this is their job. It's their job to know. And not only do they know, what the broker is getting paid, or that the broker is getting paid, but they can tell what kind of money that broker is making by the type of truck that is coming to their dock. Or because if you have people who have driven trucks before, they know what kind of equipment to look for. They know the names in the area. They know the professionalism of the driver. So they can see the caliber of the people that they send in, and
Right.
can tell, well, we're paying this much, but this is who they're bringing in, so they must be pocketing quite a bit. Versus, oh, they're getting paid this much, but look what we got, and he's professional and he's on time, and he has decent equipment that's doesn't have holes in the floors and things like that. So when a driver is going to say things like that and come in with a chip on their shoulder right out the gate, just based on things that they've heard, from colleagues,
Yeah.
it's really insulting to the intelligence of the shipper. It doesn't do anything to us because we know what the truth is, but it's insulting to the shipper. And if what you want is to eventually get direct shippers, direct customers, or, use one broker for their loads and then be able to get your own along the way, the last thing that you want to do right out the gate is insult people or call them stupid or offend them, because they're never going to use you again. That's not a
Yeah.
relationship type of broker or shipper for you, because they're not going to ask you to come back. So I think come into it with an open mind and suspend your disbelief based upon the rumors that you've heard, because a good broker is going to keep you routed.
Yeah.
If that's the route that you want to take, a good professional broker who knows what they're doing is going to keep you routed while you still manage that direct freight that you have and you've gotten yourself. But
Right.
if you're a new driver, the best advice that I could give is to come in with an entry strategy and also come in with an exit strategy.
Mm.
What are the things that are going to make you say, I'm done, I'm not doing this? And how are you going to get out? Because all too often you see the old dogs out on the road that are ready. They've been ready for 10 years to stop driving. But they have no way out. They don't know how it's going to happen. They don't
Yeah.
know how to sell their truck, or they don't know how to close their business, or who to give it to. They don't know how to transition that. So come in with your entry strategy and come in with your exit strategy as well.
That's interesting. Yeah, that's not a perspective I hear a lot, but it makes total sense, and I think that's wise advice, especially for those that because as if we've talked about, like being in that company driver position, there's tons you learn about as a driver, as the trucking industry, but making that transition from company driver to owner operator, now you're a business owner. That's
Mm-hmm.
a whole nother ball game on top of the job itself.
Yeah.
To have those strategies in mind as you're coming in and kind of seeing as, okay, well, here's the long-term stint of this. How do I successfully connect A to B here in
Right.
the most profitable and beneficial way? Yeah, it's huge than just blindly shooting in the dark, because when you look at it hindsight, then you're going to see all those routes of, man, I should have connected here to here.
Right.
So, yeah,
Right.
that's
But
great to
not
look
only
at.
that, you come in just based off of the advice, and that comes down to the discernment as well. You
Yeah,
heard a truck driver at a truck stop talking about how much money he was making on his own, no longer a company driver. You don't know if he's blowing smoke up of you know what. You don't
right.
know if he's just trying to brag or make himself look good. And you're only going to spend what, one, maybe 2 nights there, and you're never going to see him again. Maybe
Yeah,
at the roundup on I-80. But you never know. You never know exactly who it is that you're talking to, and now you're going to base your whole business strategy on that. Well,
right.
you're going to get what you paid for.
100.
And also, you can't approach these direct shippers as drivers. You have to approach these shippers as business owners.
Yeah.
I had a driver wanting to broker for me, wanting to train under me because he wanted to get out of his truck. And he said, I'm just gonna approach them as different from other brokers. That's what they can expect. I'm not like these other people. And I'm like, okay, but what are you gonna be? And one day he showed up for a site visit in shorts and flip-flops, no business cards,
Right.
and asked them for a pen and a piece of paper to write his number and contact information on. And I'm like, you showed up there as a driver. You didn't show up as a professional. You didn't show up as a business owner. You didn't show up as a broker. You showed up as a driver. And it's drivers like that that have turned them to brokers. So
Sure.
not only are they not going to ever use you as a driver, they're not going to use you as your broker or as their
Yeah.
broker. So um, just keep in mind that there are so many different hats that you have to wear when you're breaking out on your own from company driver. You have to find dispatch if you're not going to dispatch for yourself, and be smart about that because there's a lot of fraud there. Get yourself an accountant, probably get yourself an attorney, put money aside, a small percentage or a small cents per mile every single load for repairs so that you can just maintain instead of repair. Learn about the different accounts that you can use for that, and learn about what kind of terms you need your customers to be on in order to keep yourself afloat so you're not living off of credit cards or dipping into your savings.
Mm.
There are so many things that will make this a well-oiled machine for you if you just do that little bit of research before you get in.
No, I think that's fantastic advice. Be able to look at it in that perspective. And I think, not all, but I think many fail to look at it like that. I think the big focus is, well, owner operators make more.
Hmm.
And there's a lot to that. It's a loaded statement, right? Because you make more, but you're also taking on all the costs. And
Hmm.
you also have to realize, as you're saying here, now you're wearing 10 different hats versus the one, and you've got to be in the mind space if you're going to be successful, to come to the table with the correct hat on at the correct time, and be able to
Hmm.
run it as a company and not just, hey, I'm here. Because unfortunately, in the situation you put forth there, at least to me, didn't even sound middle of the road where they wouldn't be remembered. It sounded like that's probably someone I would remember, but for the wrong reasons. And that can be
Right.
detrimental to a company.
That's the situation where it makes a bad name for all of us.
Yeah.
And so when he came back, I was like, you didn't tell them that you were a broker, did you? Because you didn't give up the company name, did you? Because we don't, I don't want them to think of that with us. But yeah, that's the type of thing that sticks in people's memories, and they remember that when any other broker approaches them. So
Mm.
um, keep that in mind when you're approaching anybody, that you're not just representing yourself, you're representing other people that are within your industry, and making people kind of smart a little bit or cringe a little bit.
Right. Now, in your role, you have the opportunity to talk to a lot of trucking companies, a lot of drivers out there, right?
Hmm.
Within that, what would you say are, from your perspective, have been some of the biggest pain points, especially for those newer in the industry getting started out as business owners in that fashion?
Well, when they're trying to start up, you mean?
Yeah, like a new owner operator, they maybe have driving experience, but now they're out on their own. From those that you've dealt with, kind of what are those pain points that you see them going through?
They're not, they're kind of just going by the seat of their pants almost. Like,
Mm,
oh, I'll go here because the rates look good here at this time. And then maybe I'll go over. So you have to learn your lanes. You have to learn your lanes and learn where you're good. And don't try to be a jack of all trades and master of nothing. Learn that one thing that you're good at and be good at it. You know, it's the difference between going to a fine dining restaurant where they have just one menu and it's all on one page versus going to Cheesecake Factory and it's just overwhelming book of items that are all mediocre but mid-range and completely unmemorable, you know?
yeah.
So do you want to be the Cheesecake Factory or do you want to be a fine dining? Do you want to be a diner or, you know, do you want to be a little bit higher end? Because I promise you higher end makes you a lot more money. There's a reason it's fine dining. There's a reason they make a lot of money because they find their niche and they're good at it and they stick with it and it works. You don't have to be an expert at everything. Just find your one or two things because that's going to give name recognition. So learn where you're good, figure out where you want to go, know your cost per mile, and know what your profit per mile should be in
Yeah.
order, because you don't want to just stay afloat. You want to actually be profitable. Can you afford a dispatcher? If not, then how are you going to plan your routes every week? And how are you going to get your loads? And also, do you know how to fix a truck on the fly? Do you know how to, you know, or do you have reliable roadside assistance available just in case you can't
Right.
do what needs to be done for your truck? Learn about these things. If you are really, really stuck with this ELD and it limits the amount of days that you can be on one load, then price yourself for that. I find that the most successful drivers out there that I find that they are better when they rate you need to make per day, considering your clock reset, especially local drivers. It doesn't matter what your rate per mile is or anything like that. It matters what you're bringing home every week
Yeah.
and how you make that work per day. And so if that can't happen based upon the amount of hours that you can drive, you can only drive so many, then maybe find a different lane. Maybe find a different type of equipment that you are going to operate because that's important too. So everybody who is driving dry van right now, they're kind of struggling a little bit, but reefer is, you know, great.
Right.
Or flatbeds never really see a huge dip, maybe more so a spike, but it's pretty steady for flatbeds or specialized. So if you need to make this much per day, then find the equipment and find the lane that is going to get that for you and be the best at it that you can be.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I feel like we've covered a ton of great stuff today. And I can already tell you're one of those guests that I could have on for probably another 2 hours and keep going on this. So I'd love to get you back on for a part
Sure,
two if you're up for it.
absolutely.
Fantastic. With that in mind, we've covered a lot today, but anything in your mind that we've maybe missed on that would be important to throw in?
Well, we are seeing a lot of, I guess, fear out there right now with some drivers because you have the ELP and you have non-domiciled and you have, you know, certain permits that are not allowed to drive. So
Mm,
there's, they're saying that it's an exodus out, but there's not really any kind of reins on a potential exodus in. So it's fine if we are going to get rid of the drivers that are not qualified to be CDL holders or shouldn't have them. But unless we yank back on this CDL schools or the exam centers that are giving the licenses to just anybody,
mm,
it's still going to be the same problem. And in the meantime, it's very important. I'm not saying humble or anything like that because it has been a broker shipper market for years now. But just be aware if you're driving now and currently that people pay attention to predatory behavior. So there have been times when things have been reversed for you, and you've lived high on the hog, and a lot of brokers have done the same too. But if you want to have good, long-lasting relationships, regardless of who is living higher, then
Mm.
everybody's going to treat everybody fairly. And there's a big difference between flowing with the market and taking advantage. So find the broker and find the shipper who are not going to take advantage of you when things are not in your favor, but also remember that in kind when it's reversed, because things flip very easily. So keep your long-term relationships in mind as things fluctuate. So
Indeed.
that's
Indeed.
the best advice I can give right now.
Well, I definitely want to thank you so much for letting us take some time out of your busy schedule today to pick your brain on this lived and learned knowledge. You brought a lot to the table, and I can't wait to get you on for a part two.
Great.
As we wrap up here, I want to give you an opportunity for some shameless plugs. How can people find out more about you, your company, etc.?
Well, my website is smallworldbrokers.com. You can get quotes, you can learn about coaching and mentorship there with me. If you go on any of my socials, LinkedIn, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook, it's Small World Ventures LLC or Small World Annique at TikTok. There is a link tree in those bios. And in that link tree, you can find discount codes for Truck Parking Club. So you can get $20 off of your first time parking with Truck and Parking Club at any of their sites. And there's also a discount code, 20% off for Broker Carrier Summit. And that's a really good opportunity for drivers that are, smaller in size or smaller fleet size to go and actually meet brokers, see what kind of opportunities there are, kind of bridge the discourse a little bit of why we operate one way versus you operating another. And you can hear a lot of the whys, and you're going to get a discount for it off of your tickets if you want to go. That is from October 28th until the 30th in Orlando. So if you want to park for a few days in Orlando and enjoy the Florida weather, come to Broker Carrier Summit.
Heck yeah. Fantastic. Well, we will make sure and get those links in the show notes below. Again, can't wait to have you on for a part two. I want to thank you again so much for letting us take some of your time out today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. For everyone out there watching, thanks so much. Make sure you like, subscribe, check out the links below to learn more about Annique and her amazing company. And until next time, stay safe out there. Have a great day.